I was sitting in my car at 11 at night, scrolling through a stranger's Twitter account, and the stranger was my girlfriend of 8 months. Let me back up. Her name is Maya. We started dating the summer before senior year, and honestly, she was the kind of person who made everything feel calm. Like, you know how some people walk into a room and the energy shifts? Maya was the opposite. She walked in and everything settled. She was quiet, not in a shy way, but in an intentional way, like she actually thought before she spoke, which at 17 felt almost unheard of. We met through mutual friends at a bonfire, and I remember she was the only person not trying to be the loudest one there. She was sitting on the tailgate of someone's truck, just kind of watching the fire, and I sat next to her and we talked about nothing important for like 2 hours. That was it. I was done for. We became official pretty quickly. Our friends thought we were a weird match because I'm more of the outgoing one. I talk a lot, I'm in student government, I play soccer, I'm always doing something. Maya was more reserved. She'd come to my games but sit kind of off to the side. She didn't post much on Instagram, maybe a story every few weeks. She told me early on that she wasn't really a social media person, and I respected that. It actually felt refreshing. Most people our age are glued to their phones performing their entire lives, and Maya just wasn't. She'd rather read or draw in her sketchbook, or go on drives with me where we didn't even play music, just talked. I loved that about her. I thought I knew exactly who she was. I thought she was the most genuine person I'd ever met. Here's the thing though. Looking back, there were little things I probably should have paid more attention to. Maya was always on her phone, like always. But whenever I'd glance over, she'd tilt the screen away, not aggressively, just slightly like a reflex. I asked her about it once and she said she was just scrolling Reddit or reading articles, and I believed her because why wouldn't I? She also had this thing where she'd sometimes say stuff that felt weirdly specific, like she'd reference internet drama or a tweet that went viral, and when I'd ask where she saw it, she'd just say, "Oh, somewhere," and change the subject. I never thought it was suspicious. I just figured she consumed content like the rest of us but didn't want to be part of the conversation publicly. There was also this one time, maybe 4 months into us dating, where she got a notification on her phone while we were watching a movie at her house. Her screen lit up and I saw the Twitter icon, and the preview of the notification said something like, "Your post has 2,000 likes." I glanced at it and then at her, and she just silenced her phone and tucked it under her leg. I didn't say anything. I told myself it wasn't my business. Maybe she had an old account. Maybe she tweeted something once and it randomly blew up. I trusted her, and honestly, I didn't think it mattered. That was my first mistake. Not because she owed me her passwords or anything, but because I ignored something that clearly didn't match the version of herself she was showing me, and I let the comfort of not knowing win over my curiosity. So here's what happened. It was a random Tuesday night. Maya was sleeping over at her friend Priya's house, and I was bored, just lying in bed doing nothing. My buddy Marcus sent me a tweet in our group chat. He said, "Bro, this girl is unhinged, look at this thread." It was a Twitter account with a handle I didn't recognize, something like a Desolate Girl, and the profile picture was a drawing, like a stylized anime-looking portrait. The bio said 17, writer. Overthinker, I'll probably delete this later. The thread Marcus sent was this long, emotional breakdown of a relationship, not like a sad vent post. It was detailed. It was almost like fiction, but clearly wasn't. The person was talking about how their boyfriend was emotionally unavailable and how they felt invisible next to him because he was always performing for everyone else and had nothing left for them. I read it and my stomach dropped, but not because I knew it was Maya. Not yet. It dropped because the details felt uncomfortably familiar. The person described their boyfriend as someone who was always on in public, always the center of attention, always smiling, and then would go completely quiet in private, like he had used up all his energy on other people. They described a specific moment at a school event where their boyfriend forgot to introduce them to someone, and they stood there like a ghost. That happened. That literally happened at our homecoming fundraiser. I forgot to introduce Maya to our new student council advisor. She told me later she didn't care, but I remember feeling bad about it. My hands were shaking a little. I scrolled down. The account had thousands of followers. Thousands, and the tweets went back over a year. This person tweeted constantly, like multiple times a day, and the tone was nothing like Maya. It was sharp and sarcastic and brutally honest and sometimes genuinely mean. There were tweets roasting people without naming them, tweets about feeling superior to classmates, tweets mocking the idea of school spirit and calling people who participate in it performing seals. I'm literally the student government vice president. I plan school spirit events. There was a tweet from September that said, "My boyfriend spent 3 hours making posters for a pep rally and genuinely thinks he's changing the world. It's so adorable it makes me sick." I wanted it to not be her. I wanted it so badly. But then I found a tweet from August that described our first date word for word. The ice cream place, the fact that I got mint chocolate chip, the bench we sat on. She wrote, he talked for 40 minutes straight, and I let him because sometimes it's nice to be around someone who doesn't realize how much space they take up. I read that sentence probably 15 times, then I closed the app, opened it again, and read the entire account from the beginning. I didn't sleep that night. I read months and months of tweets. Some of them were funny, some of them were genuinely good writing, but a lot of them were about me, and they weren't kind. She described me as oblivious. She said I had the emotional depth of a motivational poster. She wrote about our relationship like it was something she was studying from the outside, like I was a subject and she was taking notes. There was one tweet where someone asked her why she stayed with her boyfriend if she found him so shallow, and she replied, because he makes me feel normal, and I need that more than I need to be understood. That one actually made me feel sick. The next day at school, I could barely look at her. She came up to me at my locker, same as always, put her hand on my arm and asked if I was okay. I said I was fine. She tilted her head, did that little concerned face she does, and said, "You seem off." And all I could think was, are you going to tweet about this later? Are you going to tell 6,000 strangers that your boyfriend was acting weird today? I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I smiled and said I was just tired. She kissed me on the cheek and walked to class, and I stood there feeling like I didn't know a single true thing about her. I held it in for 3 days. 3 days of reading new tweets in real time while she was texting me normal stuff. She'd text me a heart, and 20 minutes later she'd tweet, "Performing affection is exhausting but necessary." I was losing my mind. I finally broke on Friday. I picked her up to go get food and I was quiet the whole drive, and she knew something was wrong because she kept glancing at me. When I parked, I just said it. I said, "I found your Twitter." Silence was the worst part. It lasted maybe 5 seconds, but it felt like 5 minutes. Then she said, "Which one?" And that honestly almost made me laugh because it implied there were multiple and I couldn't even process that. I said, "Desolate Girl, the one where you talk about me like I'm a character in a book you're reviewing." She closed her eyes. She didn't deny it. She didn't apologize. She just sat there with her eyes closed for a long time, and then she said, "You weren't supposed to find that." I told her that was the most obvious thing anyone had ever said. I asked her why. I asked her how she could sit next to me every day and act like everything was fine, and then go online and tear me apart. She said she wasn't tearing me apart. She said it was how she processed things. She said writing was the only way she could be honest about what she felt, and that the person on Twitter was more real than the person I knew in real life. She said, "The Maya you're dating is the performance. That account is who I actually am." I didn't know what to do with that. I still don't. Because here's the thing that messed me up the most. After I went home that night and sat in my car in the driveway, I reread some of her older tweets, the ones from before we started dating. And they were sad. Really, really sad. She wrote about feeling like she didn't exist unless she was being perceived by strangers. She wrote about how terrifying it was to be close to someone, because eventually they'd see through the version of her she'd built. She wrote about wanting to be loved, but not believing she was the kind of person anyone could love if they really knew her. And buried in there, from the night of the bonfire where we met, she wrote, "A boy sat next to me tonight and talked to me like I was a real person, and I almost cried in front of everyone. So now I'm sitting here and I don't know if I'm angry or heartbroken or both." She lied to me. She performed a whole personality and then mocked me online for not seeing through it. But she also told me in her own way on that account things she could never say to my face, things that were real and painful and honest. I keep going back and forth. Was I dating a lie? Or was I dating someone who was so scared of being known that she could only be herself behind a screen? And honestly, was I really that oblivious? Did I actually never ask the right questions, never push past the surface, because the easy version of her was comfortable for me too? I haven't broken up with her. I haven't forgiven her either. We're in this weird in-between where she knows that I know, and I know the real her might be someone I never actually met in person. I don't know where this goes. So tell me honestly, am I wrong for feeling betrayed? Or is she wrong for never giving me the chance to love the version of her that was actually real? And if you found out someone you loved had a whole secret life online, where they were a completely different person, could you ever trust them again?